Hello again, and welcome to yet another Mega Man playthrough by Efrain225. This time around, it's Mega Man X3. The footage for this game has been sitting on my drive for a while now, so I decided it's time. I should probably just commentate over it so I can get on to Extreme 2 or whatever else I want to do with the Mega Man series. If I don't pass this, I won't get to any of the other games I want to talk about. So, X3. This playthrough is going to be a little bit different. Instead of a full hour video, it's going to be split up into 3 half-hour videos because X3 is a lot more difficult than its predecessors, and I have much less experience with those two games. So instead, I recorded all of the stages in segments and edited them all together instead of doing just one full playthrough in a single sitting. So there's going to be 3 half-hour videos instead of a full hour and 15-minute video. That was the best time I could put together. I'm no speedrunner for X3. Now, X3 itself, it seems that Capcom really wanted to go out with a bang because this is the final Mega Man game on the SNES, as far as I know. I don't think Mega Man 7 came out any later. But it has a lot of new features, and most of them are, well, I would say some of them are inconsequential, others are actually pretty cool. So this ends up being a game I have mixed opinions on, and it seems X has been captured. Oh well, I guess that's the end of the game. See you for Mega Man X4 or Extreme 2. Bye-bye. Oh, of course, I'm just kidding. That is such an overused gag. It's Zero! We finally get to play as Zero in Mega Man X3. And this was probably a really cool moment for anybody who was a fan of Zero. It's like he was always this mysterious, awesome character who was a lot better at fighting than X, even though X was the one who defeated Sigma in the end, go figure. But yeah, you get to play as him finally, and other than starting with a full health bar, he's not actually a lot different from X. He's just more powerful, but he does have one trick up his sleeve that X probably can't get. Charge the Buster up all the way until he starts flashing green, and you can unleash a lightsaber attack that kills most enemies and most bosses in either 1 or 2 hits. Isn't that nice? That is awesome, and Zero goes on to use this lightsaber throughout the rest of the series. Unfortunately, it kind of gets weaker in X4 because it's down to being his regular attack. Now, what's unfortunate about all of this is that Zero is very underused in my opinion. You can only call on him for help once per level, and if you reach a boss door, you have to switch back to X, because Zero cannot fight any of the bosses. Well, all but one of the bosses, I should say, but we'll get to that. So, it's actually rare to see Zero used, because in addition to all of that, if he loses all of his health, then you can't use him for the rest of the game. But if you can't really use him for any of the excruciatingly difficult parts such as bosses, what's the point of him? I mean, there are sections where you could give X a break and get past a tough part of a stage with Zero, which I probably should have thought about doing in this playthrough in fact, but he can't pick up any of the heart tanks, sub-tanks, or armored pieces either, so if you have to switch back to X, and you can only summon him once per level, what good is he? Well, there are a few good uses for Zero, and I will bring these up as we get to them. But first, we are on the stage select screen, and we are now ready to pick our first Maverick, which will be a bit of an unusual choice for veterans of the series. I mean, unless you're a speedrunner, then you know why I'm picking this stage first. This is Tunnel Rhino stage, and you can skip the boss intros, the little scene that they have, so I decided to do that. Tunnel Rhino is a difficult stage. A lot of enemies do a lot of damage here. In fact, enemies in X3 do a lot of damage. But the reason I'm picking Tunnel Rhino first is that you actually need his weapon in order to collect some of the items in this game. And this stage itself has a couple of items that require weapon use to get to, so this game was not as kind as X2 when it comes to letting you get all the items and upgrades in one playthrough, and there are a lot of items and upgrades in X3. Fortunately, that first sub-tank is free. Unfortunately, since this is all being recorded in segments, and I have to input my password at the end of every level, I unfortunately don't carry over any of my sub-tank energy, so that's the trade-off for recording all of this in segments. Anyways, we just passed through a seemingly empty room with doors that look suspiciously like the X-Hunter doors from X2. I will explain what those are. They don't come into play until you have beaten 2 bosses, but basically, There are two bosses that are kind of sort of equivalent to the X Hunters, not really, because they're not optional and you have to beat them. But there are things you can do with them, so I will explain that. I'm just waiting for X to get past the worst enemy in the game. Like, all it does is slow you down for a few seconds. What is even the point of that enemy? I have no idea. So, are we up to the mid-boss yet? Most stages in X3 have a mid-boss, and this is one of them. It is a robot with a stunningly equipped pelvis. That's interesting. I've sort of come to know X3 as the game that really likes ram attacks for some reason, because you can see that this Maverick is just ramming into the wall mindlessly again and again. If you stay close to the top of the screen, he has other attacks, but I'm just manipulating him into ramming the wall over and over like it's a good move. And we get the first taste of X3's obsession with very long explosions. Normally only bosses explode like that in the previous games, but they decided to extend that to the mid-bosses as well. Interesting. So when that mid-boss rams into the wall, he actually knocks you off the wall and into his spike, which is a very interesting way to damage somebody, but there you go. Alright, so apparently you cannot climb up past the top of the ladder, you have to climb the ladder itself, which is a bit annoying. They might as well have just not had that ladder in the first place, because X can cling to walls and climb them. So why are there so many ladders? I mean, it's not like the enemies in the stage use them. This stage has a couple of annoying enemies, like that tank that turns into 2 drills when you destroy it. But enough about that. Let's talk about the boss, who is the most easiest boss in the entire X series, I guess. This is your Toad Man right here. Only, except not, because he's a rhinoceros with drills, and he moves around on roller skates. Okay. So all you have to do is wait for him to ram into the wall. Sometimes he will do a fake out and try to, I don't know, stab forward with a drill. I don't really get it. Just wait for him to ram to your side of the wall and then jump behind him, shoot, cling to the wall, and repeat. The only reason I'm getting damaged is because I'm slippery with my movements a little bit. So yeah, it's a very basic pattern. And another thing that's new to X3 is that all bosses in the game, I think some bosses in X2 had desperation phases, but all of them in X3 have desperation phases, where they will sometimes randomly turn invincible or do something a little bit different. I don't really know what Tunnel Rhino is doing differently. It seems like he's just ramming the wall a little bit faster. I don't really get this boss, to be honest. Oh well, that's the first of the 8 Mavericks destroyed, and we are going to get a weapon which will be used mostly to crush certain blocks and get past them to find special items inside. And it's going to be consistently useful throughout most of the stages. So you'll be able to see it used a couple of times. It's not really a good combat weapon, and you can skip the demonstrations of the weapons that you get as well, so I will be skipping those as well, just to save time. Alright, so the next stage is Blizzard Buffalo stage. And true to the name of the boss, it's an ice level with very annoying ice physics. I think they're mostly the same as X2's ice physics, but you have to go up some ice slopes on occasion, and that will prove very annoying. But until then, you can save yourself some time by firing these drills into ice blocks from the left there, so that you don't have to spend time waiting for the blocks to be destroyed one after the other. And there's the first heart tank. So there's another way to break past these ice blocks, but I will talk about that later. Much later. I don't unlock the thing you need for it until Blast Hornet stage, which is the 6th stage I play. Alright, so I'm gonna try to use this drill missile thing as a actual weapon. It's not really that good. I think when it hits an enemy, it actually causes the enemy's hitbox to disappear for a little bit, so you can, like, dash right past them, but I was never really good enough to take advantage of that. Here's another one of those blank rooms that won't have anything in it until I beat the second, until I beat Blizzard Buffalo, as a matter of fact, since I'm taking him second. So it is pretty fun to slide along those ice slopes when you're going down them, because you can actually, I'm pretty sure you can outrun this, the camera. So that's fun. Although you couldn't outrun the camera in X2, so why would you be able to in X3? Oh well. There's a sub-tank on that ledge right above me here, but I'm not going to get it. It's not really worth the time. I don't even use sub-tanks, so I'm not really sure why I actually collected a couple of them. Anyways, what I'm doing here is this gap is pretty huge, so I'm actually going to take advantage of something that the character switching does. It actually resets your velocity in the air. It resets your falling speed, I should say. It is a lot like the pause trick from Mega Man 2, except that you can only really do it 2 times per level. Once when you switch to 0 and another when you switch back to X. And I have to switch to X anyways in order to pick up this armor capsule. I don't think you need that trick in order to get to this capsule because it doesn't really seem like something that's developer intended. But I've missed that jump so many times that I prefer to just use that trick and save myself the headache. So as you saw from that demonstration, the leg upgrade gives us an air dash like X2, and it also gives us an air dash that goes upwards, and it can be a little bit awkward to use because you have to hold up and hold down the dash button for a second or two in order to use it, but both the air dash and the upwards dash come in very handy, like against this boss. Blizzard Buffalo has a very wide arena and will, again, ram from one side of the room to the other. He will also fire these ice projectiles that stick to the walls and make it harder for you to climb them without destroying them or taking a hit. When his horns start glowing, you really don't want to get hit by him because he will grab onto X and then slam him into the wall, which does a lot of damage and it's really annoying to avoid. I'm pretty sure that laser doesn't really do any actual damage, but it's simple to avoid, just cling to the wall. His AI is very manipulatable, so if you want to see him getting just outright humiliated, watch a speedrun or something. But either way, oh, something happened to the sound here. That's strange. And I have unfortunately let slip the sound effect that plays whenever my controller gets disconnected, so that's kind of embarrassing, but oh well. Anyways, with 2 of the 8 main Mavericks defeated, we are going to get a cutscene that introduces us to 2 new characters who are going to randomly appear in those empty rooms that are present in every level, like we saw in the previous 2 levels. One of them appears in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th levels you play, and the other will appear in the 6th, 7th, and 8th levels that you play. And you have to fight these guys. There's no way to get around them because the rooms they're in are mandatory, and they're inevitably going to appear. You can force them to appear as late as possible by repeating the stages that you play through over and over until they just don't appear until the end, but they do add a little bit of an inconsistency to the game because it can cause some levels to be longer and more challenging, like if you've got to deal with particularly tough enemies and have to deal with one of those 2 at the same time, it's not a fun ride, let me tell you. Especially if both the main boss and the boss that you have to fight randomly are both weak to the same weapon. That can happen too. We also saw a mysterious Maverick. Who knows who that could be, but his stage is now available as well. You have to find the entrance to it in one of the main stages, so that's open too, but we'll get to that. Anyways, the next stage is called Neon Tiger. Well, the next boss is called Neon Tiger, and his stage is interesting because the music for this level is actually a riff of another song called My Michelle by the band Guns N' Roses. Yeah, somebody at Capcom was a Guns N' Roses fan at the time, considering the boss names of the X5 Mavericks, but we might get to them later. And in fact, that was actually changed in the Legacy Collection version. Speaking of music, I should mention that I don't really like the SNES version of X3's soundtrack in general. There's a couple of nice tunes, but overall I just couldn't really get past the use of the heavy electric guitar and all of the other weird instrumental choices. But there is actually a port of X3 to the Saturn and PlayStation, and I as a brief aside, I will mention that you need to use Tunnel Rhino's weapon and the leg upgrade to get to this capsule. It is the Buster upgrade, and unfortunately it's not a very good one because the charge shot now stops your movement while you're using it. I think that was the case in X2 as well, but this stops you for much longer and it's way harder to use effectively as a result. Anyways, getting back to the ports of this game, there are ports to the Saturn and PlayStation, and they feature a remix soundtrack that I actually do like a lot better than the SNES version because they actually vary up the instruments a little more, and it's much nicer on the ears. So I would have played through that version, except that you can only really play it in English on the X Collection, and I don't really like the X Collection either because, I don't know, I think controlling it was a little bit more difficult. I don't really know why. Anyways, oh, there was lag in the X Collection version, that's something. But yeah, the PlayStation port is on the X Collection if you want to see what changed in that port. This mini-boss is weak to Blizzard Buffalo's weapon, so that's why I was using it. Blizzard Buffalo's weapon fires a very slow ice needle projectile at enemies. It didn't really seem all that useful to me. When it hits something, it breaks and leaves a little ice needle on the floor, so I guess that's useful in certain situations, but like with most weapons after X2, I don't really see them being all that useful, because you could just use the X-Buster and deal with it anyways. But that mini-boss, it takes a while to kill him without Blizzard Buffalo's weapon, so that's why I was using it. Anyways, we might have to fight one of those guys. Let's see if he appears. Nope, he's not here. So he must be in one of the next 2 stages. That's good. I don't want this stage to take any longer than it has to. X3 stages are long, and they have a lot of high damage enemies in them. They also have enemies which I am not going to kill because, look at these guys. They're just little worms munching on the dirt and creating spike pits. Something tells me that they were deployed a little bit too late, because if they had been deployed earlier, they could have covered the whole stage in spikes, and I would not be able to get through without getting killed. As sometimes, you know, it's easier to just coat the whole level in spikes if they're so efficient at killing X. So, the boss is yet another Wolverine clone. Neon Tiger here, I don't think that's even the same species as a Wolverine, but... or class or whatever, but Neon Tiger, he jumps around the screen quite a lot. You have to really be ready to dodge out of the way. When he goes to the top of the screen, your best course of action is probably to stand in the center-ish part of the room, not the absolute center, but maybe to the left or right, so that you're ready to dodge no matter what direction he goes in. And these bullets that he fires, you probably want to jump up to the corner of the room if he fires them while on the ground, and then just dodge out of the way if he's at the top of the room while firing them, because those are pretty easy to dodge if he's very far away from you. So this battle didn't really go as well as I wanted it to. Then again, nothing goes as well as I would like it to, so that's a given. But because of the new charge shot that they introduced, it's actually, like, I feel like I have to fire when I've charged up to the second level of charge, instead of just charging up whenever I want, which adds a level of timing. And it really is that annoying to use the fully charged, upgraded charge shot, because of, like, when it hits him, like, sometimes it does things like that. I guess he did block it, but I don't know. I guess it may be just a feeling that I have. I think you would have to play it for yourself. Like, I know when you do a charge shot like that, that is much slower than the charge shots that I'm used to. I think that's the problem. It just goes a lot slower. And I have to alter my planning so much in order to be able to use it. But I had to pick up the arm upgrade. I couldn't skip it because the body upgrade requires that you use a charged weapon. So that'll be annoying. Fortunately, Neon Tiger drops a pretty good weapon. It is the Ray Splasher. It lets you do the bullet attack that he did in his boss battle, and that's strong against a good number of annoying boss battles that we're going to have to deal with later. So that's good. Next up is Gravity Beetle, and this stage, no matter what version of the game you're playing, this stage theme is excellent. It is the best music in the whole game. I like it a lot. The stage itself has been described as an homage to Boomer Kuwanger from X1, because apparently Boomer Kuwanger and Gravity Beetle are brothers. It's that whole Japanese Beetle brother thing that pops up in a couple of games in anime. I don't really get it, to be honest. I don't really know why. How could you have brothers? Because they're both Reploids. How would they, you know, do the thing? Alright, so moving on. Oh, it's the first of those 2 special bosses I was talking about. This guy is called Bit, and the other one is called Bite. Very funny theme naming. He is weak against the... It's called the Frost Shield for some reason. That's what the weapon is called. I just remembered it. And it's actually pretty effective in addition to being his weakness, because he will inevitably dash over the broken bit of the shield when it is sitting on the ground. His attacks are not that difficult to dodge otherwise. Just go under him if he dashes upwards, if he dashes towards the ground, climb and jump over him. And those annoying rings that he fires are not difficult to avoid either. You can just climb to the top of the screen to avoid them. Just don't get caught, otherwise you'll be stunned and he'll ram into you. Now, I stopped using his weakness and finished him off with a buster because if you finish them off with their weakness, they are dead for the rest of the game. They are permanently gone. If you use the buster, then they will actually come back for another round in one of the fortress levels. Now, in order to alter one of the fortress bosses, you have to destroy both Bit and Bite with their weaknesses. But you don't want to do that, actually, because their replacement is a lot more difficult, if you can believe that. It's like it's punishing you for using the weakness. But you can just switch to the Buster when they're almost gone. And this ties into that idea that X3 has way too many variables, because in addition to armored upgrades, you now have to worry about certain bosses being dead permanently or not. And there are more items and collectibles than just the armors as well. Like armors, heart tanks, sub-tanks, and there's other stuff as well. I haven't gotten to them yet, but I will eventually. So that can be a lot for a new player to take in when they open up X3 for the first time, or they look it up online and see all of these different things that you can collect and get. I know I was pretty overwhelmed when I had to think about all of this stuff that was going on in X3. But once you're used to all of it, you can at least just pick up the items that are most useful to you and then just, you know, play the game. And then it's a pretty solid X game from that point on. It's not like the worst thing in the world. I definitely still think the X series gets worse and worse the further it goes on. Believe me. Anyways, the rest of the stage is actually a breeze due to having the leg upgrade. You can dash upwards past all of these ledges to the boss doors. And Gravity Beetle himself is not that difficult of a boss. I say that a lot of bosses in X3 are difficult, especially for the first timer, but Gravity Beetle is not a very difficult boss, I would say. All he really does is hop forward like that and then fire a bouncing blue ball projectile, which is very easy to avoid because if you stay on the left side of the screen, it's pretty much gone by the time he's fired all of them. Of course, I got hit there because he was almost about to ram into me with his body anyways. And past half health, he will create this weird-looking black hole. I don't know what it does, I just know that you should probably not touch it. And hey, I found a use for the upgraded charge shot, isn't that fantastic? Oh yeah, he's also got another ramming attack, by the way. So that's like 3 guys with ramming attacks so far. The mini-boss in Tunnel Rhino stage, Tunnel Rhino himself, Blizzard Buffalo had a ramming attack, and now this guy. That's 4 ramming attacks. Count the ramming attacks. There's going to be a lot of them from here on out, I think. I don't actually remember where all of the ramming attacks were, but I suppose we'll have to keep track. When you beat Gravity Beetle, you get... I don't remember what you get, but the charged version of his weapon, you need it to get a couple of items, so that's good. We can at least pick those up, and the armor upgrade is among them. You know, I mentioned that you can't get the armor upgrade without the Buster upgrade, but there is actually something of a glitch you can do with the leg upgrade, but I never really bothered to learn it. Moving on to Toxic Seahorse. That's the next boss. And this stage takes place in a sewer, and I know from certain sources that sewer levels are always bad. I wouldn't say this stage is bad per se. I mean, it is kind of weird to see X going into the sewers and then climbing up through all of the waterfalls of sewage. Like, move in from the surface, dude. Like, one of the rooms is wide open with air above it, so you could have just stopped there. But of course, if we ask questions like that, then we have to ask questions like, why doesn't he just teleport to the Mavericks room in the first place? We've been asking that since Mega Man 1. Anyway, so climb up more of the sewage in order to get the heart tank. Oh man, I seriously hope X's body is like sewage-proof or something. Like, does he have to clean it out when he's done with all of this? That would be a lot of shining that you would have to do to get X back to his non-dirty self. But I suppose his armor just cleans itself because, like, he never really has to deal with that kind of thing, I guess. And I'm just filling dead air until we get to this underwater segment where you have to dash under some spikes. Now, if I had taken the high road in this part of the level, there are some secret items you can get up there, but I actually don't want to pick them up. I will talk more about this later, but first we have a mini-boss that is about as depressed as Squidward is. I just had to compare the squid enemy to Squidward, I guess. It dies pretty quickly, though. Just keep shooting at it. Some of these mini-bosses might seem like they have invincibility frames because they flash a lot, but no mini-boss has invincibility frames as far as I know. And the explosion takes a long time as well. Moving on to the next area. They do something weird here. They actually drain the water. I would have appreciated them keeping it, but whatever. I'll just use the leg upgrade anyways, because I have that. Some enemies here that are maybe a little bit difficult to avoid. At least their bullets don't bounce off the walls. That would have been tricky. So far... Oh, I embarrassed myself getting hit there. I tried to dash onto the little ledge behind him. That would have been really cool if I'd pulled it off. Also, I very easily forget that there's a spike pit there. I don't know why I forget there's a spike pit there so often, but there is a spike pit there. Just remember that when you try to speedrun this stage, if you are so inclined. Moving on to Toxic Seahorse himself. He's so toxic, he might as well be in, insert your least favorite gaming community here. So, he's not difficult. His first attack is to bounce around the room and fire a blob of sewage that bounces on the walls and drops little drips of sewage that hurt you for some reason. Apparently they're acid. I don't know why the entire stage is in acid if this guy is acid. And, how did I get hit there? I actually couldn't tell if I got hit there. Very strange. So past half health, the acid bursts change into bouncing blobs, which I don't really know why they do that. It's not that hard to avoid. Just climb onto the wall. What was I saying about X3's bosses being difficult at times? This is actually really easy if you know what you're doing. So yeah, I have no idea why I thought X3's bosses were that difficult. I mean, if it's your first time, you're not going to see most of this coming. But then that goes for most other games as well. And I embarrassed myself again here. I really should not have tried to just finish him off by getting really close to him. That was not a good idea. Alright, so Toxic Seahorse is defeated. I think that means we are either halfway through, either 4 or 5 bosses have been defeated. I lost track, but at least this one didn't have a ramming attack. Next up is Blast Hornet stage, if I remember right, but we'll see that in the next video. For now, keep watching if you like what you're seeing. See you later.